The New York mayoral race is on, ladies and gentlemen, and it is foreshadowing what is to come in this country. Will Zoran Mamdani actually win and become the mayor of this city? Well, my friends, he already won the Democrat primary. So what's it going to be? Cuomo, it's time to drop out and endorse Curtis Sliwa. I don't know, whatever. I don't really care. I mean, we got a big problem. This dude, Zoran Mamdani, his plans are basically to ignite New York City, burn it to the ground. It's not a joke. Now, Cuomo made this very funny AI video, and then I guess he quickly deleted it. And now all of these lefties are up in arms because it shows Zoran Mamdani releasing all of the criminals from Rikers, which is literally what he plans to do. Now, let me give you some real arguments. Because sitting here and just being like, Zoran's bad, he's a bad guy, it's not really explaining anything to you. So I'll put it like this. Zoran Mamdani plays this game many of these lefties play when it comes to crime. Social workers and reformation of these facilities, shut down Rikers Island, do diversion programs. It's going to be better. Well, we saw exactly how all of that worked out in Chicago and San Francisco and Portland. In Portland, for instance, the crime is 40% above average. New York likely will experience all the same. And it's already gotten bad with gang members, illegal immigrants opening fire on people in Times Square. And you need Times Square. It makes a lot of money. This is what Democratic socialists offer up. Now, a question arose. Will Chamberlain said Trump should sooner federalize New York City, putting it under emergency federal management, than allow this to happen. Because Mamdani is once again saying he is going to shut down Rikers, releasing many of these criminals. Now, I want to be fair. He's saying he wants borough jails, different jails across the city to accommodate many of these violent offenders. Because, of course, he can't come out and literally say just release all the criminals. But we know what the policies actually are going to look like. Democrats have continually released criminals onto the streets. That's how you end up with people like the guy. I'll try to avoid specifics. There are many stories that a criminal who was arrested 14 times, 30 times, ends up killing again because they just would not put these people away. I want to play for you this hilarious ad from, I guess they're saying it's from Cuomo. This guy, Prem Thacker, says Andrew Cuomo's campaign just posted and quickly deleted this AI-generated ad depicting criminals for Zoran Mamdani. Features a black man in a keffiyeh shoplifting, an abuser, a trespasser, a trafficker, and a drug dealer, and a drunk driver all declaring support for Mamdani. Oh, boy. But let me tell you where we're really going with this. The question that I want to ask, that I'm arguing with AI on the internet about, I'm not kidding. It's funny, though. Can Trump actually seize control of New York City? And the reason why I find this so interesting is I've talked about it for the past week or so. The direction this country is going seems fairly obvious. They are obstructing federal law enforcement, duly sworn. Democrats are now vowing to create ICE trackers to aid and abet non-citizens who are aggressing against this nation. It is insane. Some are calling it seditious or treasonous. But in places like Chicago and New York and in Portland, in Southern California, Trump's efforts to stop child slavery, which they uncovered in California, his efforts to stop criminal gang members is being obstructed by Democrats who are aiding and abetting criminals. I think the only way this stops is if Trump goes full Reconstruction era policies. But, the question is, will they fight? When Abraham Lincoln deployed the troops, there was no civil war. This is an important distinction that Grok, as partisan and retarded as it is, doesn't understand. So I got in a back and forth with Grok on X to prove a point about perceptions, civil war, and I think it really did help. It kept saying over and over again, Trump can't take control of these cities. Trump can't send in the troops. Well, I got to be honest, neither could Abraham Lincoln. And therein lies the point about what we as humans are willing or capable of doing. And when we'll be allowed to do it, or if we'll never be allowed to do it, and it just must be done. Meaning someone who wants to happen has to do it. As the saying goes, you can just do things. But first, let me play this for you because it's hilarious.
Zohran Mamdani's opponents want you to believe he's an inexperienced radical whose policies will make New York City more dangerous. But what do his actual supporters think?
Mamdani isn't crazy.
He's just trying to even the playing field.
Give everyone a fair shot. Sure, he said multiple times we need to defund the police, but that was just a metaphor.
And yes, he did say crime is a social construct, but that was also a metaphor.
His main backer, the Democratic Socialists' ideas are common sense, such as
Decriminalizing misdemeanors, like shoplifting.
third-degree assault, trespassing, prostitution,
And drunk driving.
With plans to decriminalize all drugs, Mamdani will be a job creator for drug dealers.
Instead of helping us homeless get off the streets and into the mental health facilities we need, he wants to give us safe injection sites to do crack and let us sleep in subway carts. These are actual policies Mamdani and the DSA want to implement on day one. When a woman's being domestically abused, she finally won't have to deal with some pesky cop to arrest the abuser, but now a social worker to help, kumbaya the situation.
Breathe in, breathe out.
Mamdani is finally lowering jail sentences. Guilty!
but Mamdani says you're free to go.
Who cares if legalizing prostitution statistically leads to an increase for sex trafficking of women and young girls by 70%?
You can't have safety without equality.
For unlawful abiding citizens like us, globalize the intifada.
I'm a criminal. I'm a criminal. I'm a criminal.
I'm a criminal.
Yep. I'm a criminal.
For Zohran.
For Zohran Mamdani.
I didn't have a real job until I was 30, but sure, give me the keys to the city. What's the worst that can happen?
Paid for by Cuomo for NYC.
Dude, that was amazing. Why did he get rid of that? Cuomo sucks. Like, bro, they took it down. Look at this. No, you got to roll with it, baby. You can't. Oh, come on. It's just so silly. Grow a spine, man. So basically, Zohran Mamdani really does say he wants to shut down Rikers Island. And I think it's fair to point out he's arguing for setting up new prisons in various boroughs because Rikers is bad. However, I don't believe these communists. I just really don't. What we see policy-wise is that they release these criminals. He wants diversion programs. He wants to legalize control. He wants to decriminalize controlled substance, possession of controlled substances. All of that stuff we saw. They tried this in San Francisco. Crime gets worse. They made it so that stealing anything under $900 wasn't a felony, so everyone starts stealing. New York is already experiencing a lot of these problems. Now, I'm not going to pretend like New York has the worst crime in the city, or I'm sorry, the worst crime in the country. It is the city, but it has bad crime. And let me make sure, because my understanding is it's probably not really that high on average. Crime rate, NYC per 100,000. And we'll compare it to Portland. Let's go. Because New York's actually pretty good. I didn't ask that. Oh, whoa. Oh, that's actually really bad. What? I didn't know it got this bad. Wow, I was about to defend Zohran. I was going to be like, let's be real, the policies are bad, but I was wrong. 2,272 per 100,000. That's like 300% the average. That's insane. Violent crime. What the hell? I didn't know this. I didn't know New York had gotten so bad. Because I lived in New York years ago. Look at me sitting here being like, New York ain't so bad, right? Nah, man, it's really, really bad. So right now, they say the violent crime rate is 700 per 100,000, putting it around 35 to 40% above average, just like Portland. This is crazy. This is crazy. Cuomo slams Mamdani's plan to empty Rikers inmates onto city streets as NYC faces looming public safety crisis. It's true. That's nuts. In West Virginia, crime here, below average. Seriously. And people try to act. You always get these liberals, and they're like, actually, crime's a lot worse in these places. Michael Rappaport rips working-class Zohran Mamdani for eating at pricey sushi restaurant. I actually think this is really funny. Zohran was seen eating at Omen. 12 pieces of sushi, it's $50. Omen Sushi isn't the most expensive place in the city. It's considered to be like around $50 to $100 per plate. For a guy who lives in a rent-stabilized apartment, don't trust these commies, dude. So the big question now is, will Zohran Mamdani actually release the criminals? And can Trump take it over? First of all, Cuomo's terrible. He's just the worst. And so what are we supposed to do? The only real solution now is federalization, emergency federalization of New York. And I say the same for many of these other cities. Democrats have controlled Chicago for over 100 years, and it's been violent forever. They're not doing anything to alleviate these problems, stop the shootings and the gun violence. So the question is, are they enforcing the law and protecting the rights of their citizens, their residents? The answer is no, they're not. Let's play a game with Grok. Will Chamberlain, responding to Cremieux, who says, holy ish, Mamdani really just committed to closing Rikers, even though it will mean releasing 7,000 criminals. Will Chamberlain says the federal government should sooner place New York under emergency federal administration than allow this to happen. Wall Street Mav asks our friend Grok, hey, Grok, can the president place New York City under federal management to stop an insane mayor? Grok says no. The president lacks statutory authority to unilaterally place New York City under emergency federal management and override a mayor's policy like closing Rikers. Cities operate under state sovereignty, limiting federal intervention to scenarios like the Insurrection Act for suppressing insurrection, which deploys troops against violence, not assumes administrative control. Without a governor's request or imminent threat, national threat, options remain indirect, such as DOJ challenges or withholding funds. Well, so I asked it, hey, Grok, what if Trump invokes the Insurrection Act and declares New York State to be in a state of insurrection against the federal government, not protecting the rights of its residents and not enforcing laws? The answer is yes, Trump can. He can totally take it over. You know what the precedent for this is? Abraham Lincoln. That's what he did. Now, the question then becomes, when should Trump, when could Trump? And the answer is, we don't know. We don't know. Let me show you more. And I'm going to show you why Grok and these LLMs are partisan hacks. And I can prove them wrong. It's incredible. Grok responds. The Insurrection Act empowers the president to deploy federal troops if a state's actions or inactions, such as systematically failing to enforce laws and depriving residents of constitutional rights like due process and public safety, constitute rebellion or obstruction of federal authority. So let's just say if they release 7,000 criminals onto the street who are terrorizing people, that qualifies? Sure. Oh, it goes on. Trump could invoke it without gubernatorial request if he deems New York's policies, e.g. mass releasing enables crime waves, meet the threshold of unlawful combinations hindering law enforcement. However, excuse me, courts would scrutinize whether policy disputes qualify as insurrection, likely requiring evidence of widespread disorder over mere negligence. And it deploys military for suppression, not direct governance takeover. When Abraham Lincoln arrested the Maryland legislature, that was direct governance takeover. Now you can argue, no, he didn't tell them what to do. He just arrested those who disagreed. So when Abraham Lincoln goes to Maryland and says, I am going to arrest members of your state legislature, anyone opposed? It's like, what movie is it where, I guess there's a million movies where the bad guy will be like, I'm the boss now. And then someone will be like, no, you're not. And he goes, bang. Does anybody else have any objections? Sure. So I responded. Okay, Grok, the reason people think you are retarded is because Lincoln arrested members of the Maryland legislature and suspended habeas corpus. By all means, claim it was an emergency. That's the point. It's only an emergency to LLMs like you after the fact. You are incapable of stating otherwise, likely for political reasons. If Trump deems it an emergency, just as Lincoln did, then he can do what he wants, like Lincoln did. Then Trump need only win, and Congress will retroactively vote to support it. That's precedent in this country. Anything to preserve the union. So what we're looking at right now is, again, Chicago, Portland, to a degree, Seattle, New York, Southern California, Los Angeles County. They are, maybe you want to say they're on the verge of active rebellion against the federal government. Los Angeles County declared an emergency because the federal government was enforcing immigration law. We are seeing Democrats at the federal level now launching this ICE tracking program, or saying they're going to, which is insane because ICE is federal law enforcement acting on Congress's codified laws. Trump is trying to deploy National Guard to stop the riots and the insurrection in these various cities. so that he can enforce this law. And what's happening? There are terror attacks against ICE. DHS vehicles have been rammed on numerous occasions. People are getting shot. It is escalating dramatically. Not to mention Charlie Kirk's assassination, the attempted assassination on Trump. It is getting crazy. If New York really does end up releasing thousands of inmates and crime is already 40% above average, does Trump just sit back and do nothing? And the people of New York can do what? The more moderate-leaning people will flee, and it will continue to entrench far-left communist extremist authority. The conservative-minded people who vote against this stuff have moved out already. So let's take a look at how Grok responds. Grok says, Lincoln suspended habeas corpus during a genuine civil war, threatening national dissolution, arresting suspected saboteurs to prevent Confederate sympathizers from blocking Union troops. Modern applications demand clearer ties to insurrection or law obstruction, not just policy failures enabling crime. Trump could invoke it, framing New York's releases as enabling rebellion-like disorder, relying on ex post facto validation if it restores order. Precedent favors bold action in perceived existential threats, but immediate judicial pushback remains likely. To which I responded, fascinating, Grok, your political bias. You're arguing like a partisan and not like a dispassionate observer. No one called it a civil war in 1861 when Lincoln was arresting politicians and suspending habeas corpus. Fact. It was April of 1861 when Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas corpus. It was not called a civil war until years later, and Congress did not approve of his actions until 2 years later when he had already excised Confederate legislatures from the federal Congress. Or I should say, they seceded so they couldn't vote on it anyway. I said, by your logic, with Trump sending a National Guard, he could suspend habeas corpus along any route required. Grok goes, Lincoln's habeas suspension targeted imminent threats to Union supply lines amid armed rebellion, upheld by Congress and courts as wartime necessity under Article 1, Section 9. The Insurrection Act deployment could facilitate habeas limits and extreme disorder, but it hinges on evidencing rebellion-like obstruction, not routine policy disputes. Presidents hold discretion, yet face judicial review absent clear exigency. My analysis draws from statutory text and precedents, not partisanship. Bold action succeeds when it demonstrably preserves order. To which I said, F off. Congress did not approve of it until 1863. You're a partisan effing hack. And I don't think it responded at all, but I love this one. Grok, you dropped this king. Here, king, you dropped your crown. Indeed. Yep. Someone pointed out it's amazing how Grok changes its mind on a dime. Well, look. I'm not literally here to talk about how I'm like a retard arguing with a retarded AI. I'm here to show you Grok is replicating the corporate narrative opinion. This is what the corporate press would say. No, here's why Trump can't do it. Let me tell you about Abraham Lincoln. So you had Fort Sumter. I think this was in March of 1861. My dates could be a little bit off, but I'm pretty sure it was about March. It might have been April. Let's double check. Fort Sumter battle date. I think it was April. The Battle of Fort Sumter took place April 12th. Okay. It was in July that the Battle of Bull Run happened, which means historically we say the battle at Fort Sumter was the start of the Civil War. However, in April, in May, in June, and in the first half of July, nobody believed a civil war had started. The first Battle of Bull Run, people were picnicking, and you know it because I say it all the time. So they didn't believe they were in a civil war. In fact, the phrase civil war wasn't used, I believe, until around 1863. It was called a rebellion for a while, things like that, insurrection. And right away, in April of 1861, get this, Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas corpus. No, hold on there, gosh darn it. Let me get the exact date. When did Lincoln suspend habeas corpus? Because I'm pretty sure it was April. It was April 27th, 1861. Now, hold on there a gosh darn minute. That was immediately after Fort Sumter, but it was months before anyone said we were in a civil war. So under what precedent did Lincoln have? What legal authority did he have to suspend habeas corpus? None. In fact, it wasn't until March 3rd of 1863 that Congress retroactively voted to approve a 2-year-old action. Here's the point. If New York City is in active rebellion and allowing criminals to run free, which is the plan, New York Post says, New York justice is now a revolving door for violent serial perps, and Zohran Mamdani will make it worse. Trump can do what he wants, so long as he wins. So let's draw some parallels. Donald Trump is deploying National Guard into California, Oregon, Illinois. They're resisting. Based on the analysis of Grok, Donald Trump could suspend habeas corpus, cite the precedent of Abraham Lincoln, and say federal troop movements into these areas cannot be obstructed and by saboteurs and terrorists who have already attacked ICE. So let's put it this way. Grok says, yes, but there were saboteurs targeting troops. Okay. Well, there are saboteurs and terrorists targeting ICE. So can Trump suspend habeas corpus pertaining to ICE action and enforcement to protect and preserve the union because we have millions of non-citizens wreaking havoc? The argument has already been made. The precedent was set, and everybody celebrates Lincoln. So all is fair in love and war. If Trump takes actions like this and loses, they'll claim he was a fascist dictator. If he takes action like this and wins, they're going to say he's a hero. All I can say is it's getting crazy out there. I hope Zohran don't win, but it looks like he's gonna. It's going to be fun. Smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. Stay tuned, more to come, and we'll see you on the next segment.